Last week, in an overview of Whistler Bike Park, we went into depth on A-Line, arguably the most famous jump trail in the world. For its endless tabletops, iconic features, and sheer length, A-Line's fame is well deserved. But the chatter on Whistler's lift line is about a different trail, and it's guarded by a large wooden sculpture. This is Dirt Merchant. He sells dirt, and dirt accessories. While A-Line is rated a single black diamond, Dirt Merchant is double black, and that's just the upper portion. The lower section is all new and rated scary red triangle. That's a pro line. But that won't stop non-pros from riding this trail, as teenagers, kids, toddlers, infants, and probably embryos at this point have already cleared this thing. Just like everything else at Whistler, kids who grow up here will have no recollection of it being anything but ordinary. But to Alexander and I, this trail is unlike anything we normally have access to. But we did ride it, and in the process I learned some things about myself that I should have realized a long time ago. So today I'll share those findings in the hopes that it may help someone else. But this story starts last week, before we ever touched Dirt Merchant. I had already posted my video for the week, and basically had a free day to ride the park and have fun. Since Alexander had never been to Whistler before, I got to show him all this stuff for the first time. Showing a friend around new trails can be almost as exciting as riding them for the first time yourself.
It lands right over there, and then it goes across.
At some point, we ended up at one of those scary red triangles, Dwayne Johnson. I had ridden this trail last year, but obviously Alex had not. So we walked it, sized everything up, and checked out each feature individually.
Yeah, I'm cool.
You want to do it?
Yeah, cool.
All right.
Then we went back up to link it all together. Alex had ridden his first pro-line jump trail, and our weekend plans to make a video about Dirt Merchant were looking really good. But the following morning, the trail was closed. Temporary closures are normal at any bike park, so we linked up with some friends and ran warm-up laps to wait it out. But as the day wore on, Dirt Merchant remained closed, and I started getting anxious. Anxiety led to distraction, which led to bad riding.
Holy shit.
That's me nosediving to flat on a jump I've ridden countless times. Thankfully, I pulled out of it and continued on, but it was a sign of things to come.
Holy.
Dirt Merchant never opened back up that day, and we lost an entire day of filming. The following morning, we went out feeling kind of pressed for time, but warm-ups are essential when riding a new trail. So we did some laps, warmed up thoroughly, and then headed up to Dirt Merchant so Alex could have a look at it.
Walk down easy, dodge it, and I'll show you the first section.
That is a big boy jump.
Even though I had ridden the old Dirt Merchant last year, I by no means felt confident on it or had it committed to memory. So we dropped in with some degree of caution, pulling off trail to eye up each feature. This is called a pre-ride, and there are actually signs in the park recommending you do this. A pre-ride is followed by a re-ride, and then finally a free ride. As we eyed up each feature, it was clear that our free ride would take some time to work up to. There were quite a few features on Dirt Merchant that were concerning. It's definitely bigger than the first drop. We watched as very competent riders bottomed out, nose-cased, and botched this step up in every way possible. This was not encouraging, and I really started feeling the time crunch again. So we decided to go back up and ride the trail again from the beginning. And that's when I made a careless mistake. I'm not sure what my plan was when launching off the top of this hip, but it didn't end well. Although I did chuck my bike and get away from it at the last second, I still hit the ground pretty hard. But priority number one was to get me and my bike off that trail.
You okay?
Yeah.
With various parts of my body throbbing and some mechanical issues to attend to, this was not the time to move on to the next feature. And I've been doing this new thing where I call it quits before getting hurt. But I left the mountain that day with less confidence in my riding abilities, and a growing fear that this week's video would be doomed. I also felt like I was holding back Alex, as he felt perfectly fine, but we wanted to do this trail together, so we called it quits together. The next morning, I woke up but was still asleep. I replaced my derailleur hanger and tried to repair myself with ibuprofen and espresso. But out on the mountain, I felt like a passenger on my own bike, a terrified passenger. And after a few laps, it didn't get any better.
Oh!
I was nosediving, tail diving, and even forgetting how to get around the park, all the while feeling the pressure to get my footage. It seemed eerily similar to the time I made a video about breaking my collarbone.
Yeah, I can't ride.
So I called it for the day, again. And that was all the time we had.
Either nosediving, we need a little while to get back because I can't ride a bike anymore.
So this week, I made a video about when to call it quits, for my own safety and to set a good example. But this week, I learned perhaps the most important lesson about myself, that I'm actually my own worst.
Yeah, dude. We gotta hit the.
I nose cased the shit out of it.
You nose cased it too.
We actually went back out after lunch and freaking smashed that drop.
We gotta hit that drop a little faster, and we've gotta crank that step up. Oh, dude.
We did it. Let's go.
Do it. All right. Yo!
I cased the step up on my first go, and Alexander nose cased it, but we both rolled away and went back up to hit it again. And again. And then the rest of this amazing trail. We had finally linked up all of Dirt Merchant, and morale was really high. We even ran into some friends, and these guys were riding it on hardtails. So party laps ensued. This was shaping up to be the best day ever, but the lift was about to close, and we only had time for one more lap. Well, I've screwed up way smaller jumps than that.
Yeah, I'm good.
At least I limped away with cuts and bruises. Flynn, one of the hardtail guys, broke his ankle a few bikes ahead of me. He heard the commotion, got distracted, and launched off a roller into the lip of the next jump. Flynn was in good spirits and in good hands, but it'll be a few months before he's riding his hardtail again. So what can we learn from all this? Well, despite taking precautions, warming up, and even calling it quits a couple times, I still managed to make another careless mistake on a big jump. Why this keeps happening comes down to lack of practice. I probably didn't belong on that trail and could have used a few more days on easier jumps before attempting it. Every summer, I try to cram all my jump progression into a few short bike park visits, and I forget that skill is only for rent. You can't just pick up where you left off the following June. In any case, I've got another week to work on my jumping skills. Maybe that'll be a video. Thanks for riding with me today, and I'll see you next time.